Okay, so the North Smithfield Town Council is back in session, and we're moving on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, amendment to North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan Map D1 and D2 to allow portions of Plat 17, lots 199, 142, 84, and 14 to be changed from residential suburban to highway business with appropriate transitional restrictions. We have two sub-items under this number, which is continuation of the public hearing and discussion by council or other action on second reading. And I will turn it to the town planner, Eric, to lead us off.
This is changed since the last one you saw. This is now parts of lot 142, 199, and 84. All of them are apart because the applicant has created a significant boundary, a buffer area around the parcel, and they will remain RS ultimately for conservation. So the gist of this is that the comprehensive plan has two maps, one townwide and one the other townwide, but just to point out the ones that are going to be proposed for changes. We had 60 proposals in 2006. When I came here in 2009, more than 18 months had gone by. The law was in effect, that had been done 18 months. And nothing had been done. Since then, we have done processed for Group 2, Business Highway, farther up on 146A, and mixed use in Branch Village. The planning board has turned down some other ones, mainly down zoning, for different purposes, for different reasons. But the one we have before us tonight is to add these to the maps. And I will point out that 84 is only a sliver, which is now riprap. That area is actually riprap. It's just a sliver because of the way the line was originally drawn relative to the larger lot. 199 came into play because the owner sold to the applicant, and that allowed them to change the plan significantly to have an internal road and a perimeter buffer. So that said, I guess we'll have a presentation.
Mr. President, members of the council, as you know, my name for the record is David Igliozzi. I'm the attorney for the applicant. And we're here tonight, as you know, we were here before you a few weeks ago, and we presented to you the revised plan that was really a function of us going to the planning board and presenting a master plan. We presented a full master plan for the planning board of the whole project, which I'm sure many of you residents in historical perspective, some of the members of the council have been planning board. So you understand the master plan process in some detail. And that conceptual plan was heard, revised after several public hearings, much like the ones we had before the council, and it's still outstanding tonight. And we revised them in significant ways. I did indicate at that time what they will be presented to the council at the first meeting of the following petitions. And let me just stop with that. We're here tonight, obviously, on several petitions. One is to modify the application, the zoning for lot 199, which I believe that we can show that 199 on the plan. And if you look at 199, if you look at the portion of 199 that is in green on the plan, our request is to amend the zone on 199, and for that portion that's identified in green, that's specifically described and attached to the petition that was filed before the council, to a residential suburban to BH. The portion that is in blue is going to remain residential, 100-foot residential buffer along Sales Hill Road. We're not asking it to be changed, and we're not asking you to modify neither your zoning or your comprehensive plan. So that's one of our petitions that are before you tonight, and there's a corresponding petition to amend the comprehensive plan so they match up. That's a technical requirement that we believe should be also considered by the council. In addition to that, and that really is important that we started with lot 199, is historical, and I remember the president mentioning this. When we were first before the council, we were focusing on lot 14, which is in the back of the lot there, towards the assessors plat 17, lot 14. And when we originally came before the council, we were just asking for that one zone change, and at that time, we really, based upon the construction and planning requirements, we were really going to do some blasting in that lot. We were going to take dirt, more than 20-something feet deep, away, carved away in that lot. And we were only going to provide a buffer, at least our recommendation buffer was going to be 35 feet. At that time, the neighbors had made several requests. We tried to satisfy them the best we could. But at that time, when we were at the council, we could not meet their demands. But subsequent to that, and prior to us coming tonight, the fortuitous event of the purchase of lot 199 occurred. And what that gave us the ability to do is the following things. First and foremost, we pulled the building back off lot 14. I'm talking about the major building. There was going to be no blast line on lot 14. We could give the 100-foot buffer that we had been requested by the Conservation Commission chairman and the neighbors voted by their petition. I know they don't agree with that now, but that was their request at the time, and we tried to satisfy that request. In addition to that, they didn't want any access along Sales Hill Road. We had originally limited it to emergency access, but because we've now pulled the building down off lot 14, there's no access whatsoever to lot 14 on Sales Hill Road. Zero access. In addition to that, the other issue that came up was the issue of whether or not we were going to be able to blast anywhere on that lot 14. And there was a lot of discussion on that with experts to talk about that. And let me just raise a couple more points before I turn it over to our The other interesting point, actually, and I'll have the engineer point this out to you, that prior to us purchasing lot 199, we had a larger portion of the lot area that was going to be imperviously paved. As a result of this new plan, the 100-foot buffer along lot 14, as well as the residential buffer on 199, although we added 199 to the plan, we reduced the amount of impervious pavement, and the engineer will speak. The 100-foot buffer along totals about 3.8 acres. And one of the other issues that was raised was, how are we going to know that nothing will ever happen to that buffer again? And Mr. Erickson aptly pointed out that, and I believe the conservation chairman wanted that in some kind of conservation easement placed on that. When we went before the planning board a few days ago, we committed in writing to place that into a conservation easement for the benefit of the town in perpetuity. So nothing will ever be done on that 3.8 acres. It will remain residential, suburban. There will be a conservation easement on it in perpetuity, and there will be no construction of any kind. What there will be on that, in that portion that you see in red, will be the following activities. One, there will be an infill buffer landscape area to improve the screen from what it is now, even far greater than what it is now. In addition to that, the only activity that will happen on that lot at all, on that portion of the red, will where the edges meet, where the edge of lot, the red on lot 14 meets the edge of the green on lot 14, there will be some activity there to complete the construction. The engineers have indicated 5 or 10 feet, but once the construction is complete, the way we have designed it with the benefit and the effort and the experience of the planner was to indicate that the conservation easement would get recorded immediately upon final plan approval, but it would provide for that disturbance for the sole purpose of infilling the screening area and providing that edge to the pavement. Other than that, there will be no other disturbance. The trees will remain, more trees will be put in addition to shrubs, all of which have been presented in the package to this council at some time. In addition to that, not only is the building, the amount of acreage that is less than the pervious area on lot 14 now is, I guess it's approximately 1 acre on lot 14, and we'll speak to that. The other interesting benefit that will have the engineers speak to this is the fact that the building now is going to be down the front. I don't see that. Can you see that? Can we show that? That's where, so this is an example of the way the plan would look if, as approved by the planning board, subject to the zone change. That demonstrates, and I'll have the planner, the engineer go through that with you. So with that brief outline, a couple points. One, I would like to introduce a couple additional exhibits tonight. One is the same exhibit I introduced at the planning board, which is the letter from us to the planner committing to the conservation as an exhibit. If the president would want me to do that. Just get that. President, what I have here is, I have copies for everyone on the council vote. I have the letter that's dated May 14th that was directed to Mr. Erickson. It indicates that the applicant agreed to report a conservation easement on Assessors Plat 17, Lot 14, designated as a 100-foot buffer that you see on the plan. That's that red area on the plan there, and that will be recorded immediately. So there's no time limit, obviously final approval if we were to get that far. But other than that, the planner's concern was they wanted it recorded simultaneously with an approval. In addition to that, the applicant also indicated that that area would be both screened and buffered, as well as far as the ownership is concerned, there was some discussion about ownership. The applicant is amenable to consideration of transfer ownership to the town, as well as to maybe if you want to keep it in his entity, you might keep it in his entity. And he also indicated some select abutters where he'd be willing to transfer ownership. Those are just, out of an abundance of trying to work with the town as well as the neighbors and try to satisfy their concerns. With that, could I, in addition to my letter, I did include in the letter the resume of Mr. Robert Benoit, who we had testified about his ownership, operations of a dealership, both new used automobiles. That mean new automobile dealership, new and used automobile dealership, and we just presented it so that he could testify from his experience and expertise in that regard. And I know, and the council also does not swear in witnesses and does not qualify them. But I would ask that I could introduce my letter as an exhibit and attach on the council copy.
You may mistake because it is also wanted to point out that the documents that we're receiving, we didn't receive in the packet, so I just want to be clear that we're getting these for the first time. Appreciate everybody's understanding with the AV. We're in a different location this evening, so just ask for recommendations.
exclude. Thank you for your courtesy, Mr. President. So I'll keep on playing with it. But the purpose of that document that you have it was again, just to reiterate, it isn't something we were unwilling to do. It just was a documented evidence proof that we will execute that document as part and parcel of the final plan. The terms and conditions of the conservation easement will be whatever your solicitor says and your planner says will be in there. The only thing that the applicant would need is permission to go in there to put the trees in, the additional screening that's required, and the additional shrubbery, and also to make sure that the edge between the red and the green were to be appropriately created. And that might involve some minimal disturbance. This is not any portion of land that's under any kind of jurisdiction of DM or any kind of habitat DM jurisdiction. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the habitat. You've got our expert here on that issue as well. But this land has no special jurisdictional, statewide jurisdictional control. We're donating it essentially in an effort to make the plan go forward. That's the essence of it.
Mr. Iglesias, just a question about process tonight. Can you just identify how many different folks you have lined up to speak before we open it up to public session?
Actually, Mr. President, at the last, I was just trying to, and maybe I'm not doing a very good job, just trying to remind the council of where we were when I presented this to you at the last council meeting when we opened up. I just wanted you to know about the petitions. And our plan really tonight is to listen to anybody who wants to speak in the council, and our experts are here to respond. Maybe at the end, I think Mr. Benoit, who has been obviously patiently waiting, would like to at least have the last say to make some final closing arguments to the council. So really, we don't intend to present anybody other than upon responses to questions in the council or public, just to make sure you're aware of that. So there's only two other pieces that I would want to do, introduce though before I get away from the podium, is there was a photometric plan done because there was a lot of discussion about lighting. And so the planning board had talked about it, and at the planning board meeting, we presented a photometric plan. I have copies of that for everybody, and I guess I'll ask that be an exhibit as well. And when there's questions about it, you'll have a plan in front of you. Just give that to them. Okay. The engineer has the full-size photometric plan. I give one to each member and one to the steno. So, Mr. President, I think, as I indicated to you, members of the council, that outlines the dramatic changes in the plan that we made as a result of both the neighborhood concerns, the neighborhood requests, the planning board requests, and we appeared before the planning board a few days ago and received master plan approval on a unanimous vote. We also received recommendations from the planning board to our request to make the zone changes to the four lots, as well as our request to amend the comprehensive plan that connects to those lots. Those four petitions, actually have 8 petitions, but essentially the petitions that are before you tonight involve Plat 17, Lot 199, a petition for Plat 17, lots 84, 142, and 14. And we're asking that both the zone changes be approved as well as the amendments to the comprehensive plan that match them. So that's what we're here for tonight, asking you to consider that in light of not only all the work that the applicant has done, as well as the approvals of the planning board and the recommendations of the planning board. I think at this point, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I would turn it over to start the process of taking comments and questions and responding with whoever expert is appropriate at that time. The only other thing I might I think I will introduce Mr. President. I know that at one point the neighbors had presented a petition to the council of people against the project. We are basically prepared to receive a list of 34 people that are in support of it that live in the town, as well as 100 of the employees who also are in support of it. Some live in the town, some don't. We just ask that those petitions of support also be introduced into the record. I'm sorry, Debbie, there's also customers here at the town that are in the list. So it's more than 100 people, 34 residents of the town, whether they're employees or customers or both, or customers, employees, or just residents.
Thank you very much.
Essentially.
While Mr. Igalosi is providing those to the town clerk, I would just like to remind folks that we have 3 distinct agenda items this evening pertaining to this. Each of them has a public hearing component to it. I'll remind you, the one that we're on right now is the amendment to the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan to allow portions of those lots we referenced earlier to be changed from residential, suburban to highway business. And then we have 2 other items we haven't yet gotten to, we haven't talked about, but I think they're relevant. You need to understand what's following. One is the petition to rezone one property, and then this petition to rezone several other lots. And with each of those, there is a public hearing and discussion by council vote of other action. So when we entertain comments, I guess I would ask you, they're all somewhat related, and I imagine that people who have concerns to express are going to be expressing across all 3. I just want to be clear that we have 3 distinct agenda items. I don't know if the town planner has anything else to add to that. I don't think that it needs to be, but I'd like to offer anything at this point on the logistics of what we have to deal with.
Except that the comprehensive plan issue is done for technical purposes to meet any foreseeable title or financing requirements. There's some debate as to whether that absolutely needs to be done. I think it does if the applicant wants to have a process. Other than that, I will say my other questions for the
Very good. So, first, are there any questions or comments from members of the council on the proposed amendment to the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan to allow these lots to be changed? And if you have questions, I'll be happy to pass the microphone to the site. You have to speak really close to it.
So this, So this new proposal that we're getting tonight is you get an option that who's going to keep the conservation piece. You can either, the residents can take it, or keep it, Mr. Benoit can keep it, or the town can keep it. So, is that?
Just so that we make clear, there's 2 distinct parts of that. As far as the conservation easement itself, it's an easement that will be under the control of the town in perpetuity, no matter who is the owner of the property.
Right.
With regard to the ownership of the property, the applicant is amenable to whatever ownership satisfies the town within reason. He's offered to keep some identities, provide it to the town, or provide it to some select abutters. That was the offer that's been provided in writing. But, that's going to be decided, and I assume, if we get to preliminary or final plan. Right, it would be decided tonight.
I just want everyone to know that. Okay. And how far did we move the building back exactly from the original plan?
The building's moved back approximately, I would say a good 3, 4, maybe 500 feet back.
From the original plan?
Well, in relativity, the better slide is in terms of, there's something in the slideshow. Originally, Mr. Councilman, we had the closest distance to the dwelling at about 500 feet, about 470 feet. With the new distance to the building, you're increasing that, even though they're different structures, to about 723, 793. So relatively, maybe about 200, 300 feet in terms of easterly movement.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the council, comments? So hearing none, I would at this time open it up to public comment, but before anybody steps forward, just a couple of reminders, ground rules. I would ask that you direct any comments or questions through the chair, not to anybody else. I would ask that you focus any comments on things that have not yet been vocalized at a previous public hearing regarding this matter. And I would just ask you to be mindful of our time, and I would ask that folks try to limit their comments to 3 minutes. The town clerk will help us keep track of that. With that, if anybody would like to step forward, just please identify yourself for the record. All right.
Rachel Savoy, 138 Sales Hill. I'd like to read a little on what constitutes spot zoning for those here not knowing what that is, which is actually illegal in the state of Rhode Island. The classic definition of spot zoning is the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area, for the benefit of the owner of such property, into the detriment of other owners. While considering spot zoning, courts, this might help. All right. When considering spot zoning, courts will generally determine whether the zoning relates to the compatibility of the zoning of surrounding uses. Other factors may include the characteristics of the land, the size of the parcel, and the degree of the public benefits. Perhaps the most important criteria in determining spot zoning is the extent to which it disputes zoning as consistent with the comprehensive plan. A couple days ago, I created a web petition, and it went all over the town. Within a couple days, there were 65 North Smithfield residents who have signed and left comments. And when we left tonight, there were more coming in. We don't have enough time for me to read all the comments, but I would like to just read a couple of those referring to the comprehensive plan. The expansion will have a negative effect on the quality of life in the neighborhood. I also firmly believe the requested zone change is in violation of the comprehensive plan. Our neighborhood is zoned RS40 for a reason. The comprehensive plan was approved for such events as this one as a guideline, that we wouldn't have haphazard development spoiling the urban character of our small, lovely town. And the last one that I'm going to read tonight is, I think the town council needs to revisit our North Smithfield comprehensive plan with special attention to, and there were several that were listed. So I've made copies and I'll pass them to you shortly. And if you look at the names and addresses on the petition, once you receive them, you'll see that it's not only the neighboring residents opposed to the size and location of the dealership. Many believe this enormous parking lot is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And what's worse, it's not even necessary. The higher parking lots will be used for overstock. Bob Benoit himself admitted other car dealerships park their overstock at other locations. He has other options. Are his reasons good enough for you to approve the rezoning and disrupt the whole neighborhood for what? His convenience? Thank you.
138 Sale Road.
I'm sorry?
Lou Faniff, B.A.K., 138 Sale Road. Recently, Mr. Benoit bought lot 199, 2.56 acre residential land for over $1 million. With that intent, he singled out a small parcel of residential land to be used as commercial. That is residential land, should be state commercial. So he pointed out, isn't that against the Rhode Island laws to point out a certain residential land, change it to commercial? Why would he spend that much money to purchase a 2.5 acre land, residential land, without knowing that this is approved? Did he already know that it's going to be approved? I'm a little confused because there's a lot of meetings that Mr. Erickson has spoken, and I'm not sure who he works for. Does he work for the town, or does he work for Mr. Benoit? Because there's a lot of things that he has spoken in the past that it's not his business to say, and not his business to question. I'm wondering who he works for. That's my opinion, and the neighborhood feels the same exact way. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Hector Garcia. I don't want this deal to be the same as the one in Pomona. I wrote many letters to the town administrator. He went to my property and he said to me, how come this company didn't build the street drainage on the town's property, which is the lot next to me. And they left the pipes right in the middle. The town never cleaned the street. Obviously, all those leaves is the perfect nest for the snakes and rats and the whole 9 yards. So I wrote many letters to the town administrator, to him, to Mr. Benoit. One day I was at Mr. Benoit's office with a letter complaining about that company. I received a phone call from Mr. Bobola's partner, saying that the house was already done. So Mr. Benoit stated that he was going to mail the certificate that he went there and checked everything. So how come you're going to check everything over the phone? The electricity, the water, the construction, just over the phone. Certainly because there was a conflict of interest. So I wrote a letter 2.5 years ago to the town council, of which I never received an answer back. I guess the town council never received it. How come the planning board released the construction bond 2 months before we went there?
Mr. Garcia, I just wanted to clarify, were you referring to the property on Pomona?
No, I'm giving that as an example because I live there and I suffered there. So these people did whatever they wanted. I spent 2.5 years in 10 different hospitals. Walter Reed, West Point, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. When I got back home, I started writing letters, and the town administrator, the only thing is that I wrote the wrong letters to the wrong people. So how come 10 different people, including him, show him the pictures? And he went to my house. So how come he didn't do anything? So I don't want, now as a result, I'm the one who called the Rhode Island Licensing Board and the DEM because these people did a lot of wrong things on Pomona. So that's why the DEM got in, that's why this guy who was Union Heat Development Corporation declared bankruptcy in order not to assume all the stuff. And the town had to come up.
I just want to be clear that the contractor and the property owner that you're referring to on Pomona is not what we're discussing this evening.
I know, but I'm putting that as an example. So I don't want the city.
I'd like you to focus your example on the issue at hand and
Yes.
more to the issue.
I don't want the town to overlook that construction because how come Mr. Benoit threw me out of his dealership? I have more than 20 complaints to Nissan USA, the case numbers and all that for mistreatment. He just did with my car whatever the heck he wanted. And then I called him, and he never listened to me. So he allows his manager, Mr. Dan, to throw me out at his dealership. I called last time over the phone. I set up an appointment to go there and do an oil change for my wife's car. When I got there, then Dan shows up and, what are you doing here? So the guy said, well, he set up an appointment for an oil change. I don't want you here. Just get out of here out of the dealership.
But I'm still going to ask you to reserve your comments to what's before us this evening.
Yeah, but I know what the intention of these people. So why they purchase more land, more commercial, residential land to build a commercial lot.
Okay.
So I don't want the town to go to the same on because I contacted the lawyer and his secretary called me back saying, okay, just ask your lawyer to call me.
I wish you would use the time available to more to the issue, but
Okay.
thank you for your
That's it.
comments. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Paul Soares, 171 Sales Hill Road. I'll try not to repeat things that have already been said. I'll try to just look at this from maybe a simplistic view, if you will. I'll try to. You've heard all the arguments. There's no need to go over them all again. But what it comes down to, I think, is you have a business that wants to expand. I can appreciate that. Until I retired a few months ago, I was always trying to increase my business, and that's a good thing. That's what you want to do. But this is at the expense of the neighborhood, and I still believe that it's in violation. It would be in violation of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan says very plainly prevent non-residential uses in a residential area. I don't know the exact words. But I think, okay, I'll get right to the point here, I'll try it. All you people sitting there were elected by residents, citizens, voters of this town. We have, all the neighbors and people from other parts of this town have signed petitions that we believe that this is not in our best interests as residents, citizens, and voters. And I'm sure that you all took an oath of office when you were sworn in to look out for our good and welfare, to look out for our best interests. So I have to ask you, whose best interest is this? One business or several hundred residents who are opposed to it? It's going to change our quality of life, again, traffic, and I don't reiterate all those things. You've heard it all. Please keep in mind that I think your primary objective in doing your job is to look out for the citizens of the town. And allowing a business to extend that far back into a residential area when the adjacent business zone is only a couple of 100 feet back from the highway, and this is going to be 900 feet back. The only other one that comes closest to the drive-in theater, which is not adjacent, is on the Lincoln border, and it backs up to another road. It doesn't back up to a residential neighborhood. Please keep in mind that we voted to put you where you are. And keep in mind, we will vote again.
I'm going to ask the people who haven't had a chance to speak first. But before that happens, anybody who has not yet spoken who would like to be heard?
Christine LeMay, 308 Iron Mine Hill Road, and my mother is Gail Christie, 158 Gail Hill. I don't know if this really is going to matter, but I have been working in and out of dealerships for the last 10 years, and I've worked for some large dealership groups, and one of which basically did this for residential area in Attleboro, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And tell you that they don't stop. Once they get bigger, they want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the lights and the noise and the traffic, it will go up. Buffers are not. You know, my mother's house abuts it, and she will have daylight most times. The trees aren't big enough to block those lights. I know this, I've seen it. I've worked in dealerships where the residents, the local residents have complained. They have come into the dealerships and said, this is, you know, with pictures, this is my window at night. These lights are shining in my window. We're gonna hear the intercoms. So-and-so, you have a call on line 2 all day long. It will disrupt the area, and I mean, like I said, from experience, I worked at dealerships, and it will disrupt the area, it will cause more traffic, and who's to say that they are going to stop at this? They get bigger and bigger.
Michael Thompson, 152 Sayles Hill Road. I just want to make a comment. I've listened over the last couple of meetings about their lawyer, and I listened at the planning board to Mr. Erickson and a number of people saying what a great job that Mr. Benoit has done at meeting our requests. All right, I want you to understand something. Our request initially was for this not to happen at all. So as far as listening to our request, that part got a little clear. The second part of our request was that if this was instituted, we set up a minimum, a bare minimum that we requested be done. All right? And that's what he's meant. The bare minimum. He hasn't overextended himself and said, hey, you know, you asked for this, let me give you this also. As a matter of fact, if you look at our requests, not all of them were met. There's only a few select few that met that he could work into his plan. Once he couldn't work into his plan, he just pushed aside and didn't. At one time, we were talking about a berm to protect us from the site. That berm has disappeared. I haven't heard that in the last 3, 4, 5 meetings. Where did it go? There was a berm there before. That was one of the requests that we had put in. But now there's no talk of a berm. The 100-foot buffer, that was a minimum 100 feet. We felt that's the absolute least we could accept. And that's, again, the exact least we could get. So while everybody's walking around patting him on the back from the planning board saying you did such a wonderful job by considering all the requests that these people have made, he considered the absolute minimum, gave the absolute minimum to the absolute least he could do. He did not go overboard to help us. If he had gone overboard to help us, he would stop the request, and we would have our backyards exactly as they are right now. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Lucian Benoit, 28 Ridge Hill Road. I'm here as a private citizen. Now, we're all aware that jobs and the economy are foremost in the news. Tonight, you have the opportunity to endorse a request for a zone change that will allow a private businessman to put more of his personal capital at risk in order to expand an already successful auto dealership. He's not using grant money or government funding. It's not a Solyndra or 38 studio deal. It's a dedicated employer looking to invest more of his hard-earned dollars in North Smithfield. With your approval, you will continue through the planning board process. And once completed, the stage will be set for construction trade jobs with employee taxes and more personal and federal and Rhode Island income tax revenue. There will be purchase of construction materials from steel to concrete, lumber, electrical, lighting, plumbing supplies, all with sales and employment taxes involved. There will be the purchase and installation of internal furnishings and high-tech equipment with sales and employment taxes. Wells will have to be drilled with sales and employment taxes. A new WTS is needed. Sales and employment taxes involved. New vegetative screening will have to be purchased and installed with sales and employment taxes. Excuse my developing Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, whatever it is. The age is creeping up. Potentially 50 or more new employees, some of which may be drawn from the currently unemployed. More employee taxes, personal, federal, and Rhode Island income tax. There will be an increase in new car sales to Rhode Island residents with sales tax and registration fees. The common denominator is increased Rhode Island and federal tax revenue. Let's not forget the increase in taxable property value in North Smithfield and no associated school expenditures. I'm not a big fan of all these taxes. The reality is these taxes already exist. I urge you to not only approve this applicant's request for a zone change, but urge you to do so unanimously, so you send a message that North Smithfield is open to business. Thank you.
Okay, so unless there's anybody else who would like to be heard, Mr. Faniff, I will ask you to keep it brief though, since we have already spoken.
Luke Fannin from Sales Hill Road. All I wanted to do was add that I wanted everybody here that is against the deal of this change to raise their hands. I want you to notice how many people are here that are here against this. Now, if I was to pay people to come here, this would be very cool. These people came here on their own free will. Thank you.
So, on the matter of the amendment of the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan maps, as earlier described.
I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry about that, but I indicated Mr. Benoit would want to be the speaker if the public hearing is going to be closed on these matters.
That would be fine. The public hearing, and if this is enough that to be heard.
I assumed there was going to be one public hearing for all these matters. Or you're going to...
Well, technically, the way we have it on the agenda is we've got a public hearing for each of these items, and they're all listed separately. It may be that everyone has had their say on the issue of the comprehensive plan, and there's nothing left to say for the specific petitions to rezone the lots that are mentioned. So it would be appropriate, if you would like to. Yes, Mr. Erickson.
My job is to make sure that all parties get a fair hearing, and that the discourse is truthful. And in cases where people are confused, I try to unconfuse them. In this case, the reference was to spot zoning. There is no way that this is spot zoning. Spot zoning would have to go way up, discontinued from any other business highway use, and plunk it down for a specific purpose. This is contiguous to a lot of other PH, so that's not even an issue, and I don't want anybody to be confused by that. The other issue is, for whom does the planner work? Obviously for the town. I know, if you're Bob Benoit or Joe Casale, you probably had enough of me. But the point was that this was a very difficult design, and they've made a lot of progress on it, including the conservation easement, and I just want to have everything understood in balance, but this is not spot zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit.
Thank you, Town Council. I appreciate your time. Just a couple of comments to their comments, and then I have a statement, something I'd like to mention. The quick thing on the berm, we have to go through a master plan process. The issue with the berm went away because we're chasing grade. If you remember, as the distance away from the property line, the berm, the way we did our lighting plan, for example, the light poles don't even meet the height of the property line. So the berm would be like useless at that point. So that's where the infilling came in. So it's not that I deliberately got away from the berm, and if we find that some berming in certain areas makes sense, we'll certainly address that. But that wasn't a deliberate attempt to escape a request. It was just that it would be ineffective based on heights. In terms of how big we get, I'll discuss, the dealerships and different dealerships, but I believe the conservation land pretty much limits where I'm going. Once that's in conservation, it's there forever. So I'm kind of dictating to everybody where my limits are here. That's not to say that if something comes available to the side of me on the business zone that I wouldn't take an opportunity, but frankly, what you see is what you get, and in terms of protection for the neighbors, I provided that. Okay. I spent a little time in several meetings in the beginning with the town council and through the master plan process. And, I took away a lot from the initial town council meetings. It kind of rang me a little bit when Mr. Zelinski mentioned, I ain't going for this. And I preferred at that point to take a positive approach. And in some ways I want to thank you. Because when I went back and really looked at the plan, and I started thinking about, the potential of the blasting and the buildings and the traffic, it gave us an opportunity to reassess kind of where we're going. Mary, Mrs. Titherington, sat through a couple of hearings with me, sat next to me, and I had been trying to purchase her land for years, and she brought it up, said, is there any way that this land could help? And the reality is, it's helped substantially. The buffer zone was a 60-foot buffer zone that at our last town council meeting, if you remember, we were trying to figure out how to make it straight rather than do a landscape buffer of 25 feet and leave 35 feet uncut. By going sideways, we managed to put a 100-foot no-cut buffer that was at the request of the conservation chairman, and I met that request by 150% of what he was asking for at the last council meeting. They were looking for 60 feet flat, I gave you 100. So it is excess. The land that we purchased allowed the building to come down. Now the significance of that is we understand that the activity around the building, that activity went from back here to down here. And all the business activity around that building is down on the commercial side of this lot. The additional benefits that no one's really talked about, as you recall, in the last town council meeting, there was some concerns about the traffic coming off the property, off the site. We're able, by rezoning 142, to put an entrance behind the Nissan building, which is right across the street from property I own at this point that I believe is going to the state's thing. This is going to allow a setback to cut down on the stacking for traffic coming in and out of the dealership. So I think that was a major improvement in this deal. The elimination of an access road up on lot 14. That was a major difference. With the buildings being down low, there's access for emergency vehicles. We're able to do it all off that rear access road. Sorry, this thing's frustrating. So I think that made a difference. The other thing is the blast line. I agree with the council, Mr. Zelinski, frankly, and the rest of the council's vision on that. We've essentially taken the blast line that was 60 feet and moved it down into the current business zone, right behind the building, which is right here. So we're a lot further away with a lot less blasting versus 25 feet over 1,100 feet or whatever. The lighting plan that wasn't discussed, I think it's important to note, that's an important piece, so do you have it in there? I did a lot of work on this lighting plan. I have a lighting engineer here for technical questions, but this was kind of my baby, so I'm kind of proud to talk about this one. The other concern, there's a couple of concerns on lighting. Obviously, there's the light pollution side, which is looking into the fixture, and then there's cast off. So we've obviously met the standard of the cast off of like that. Past the developed area, there's no light casting off into anyone's property. But more importantly, what I've done is it looks like a lot of light poles, but let's do a side cut. The side cut here, this is the property line. Is that the 100 foot right there, I believe? Okay, that's the 100 foot. The height of the property line, the first light pole, all the other light poles we managed to keep below the height of the property line, so that eliminates light pollution, looking up into the fixture. This is the nearest house. The other houses, as they go away, they actually go higher. So we took the worst case scenario and said, hey, here's the house, here's the property line, all the lights are below. So with the infilling that we're going to do with the 100 foot and the tree canopies, the lighting is going to be virtually a non-issue. Now, more importantly, go back to the other one.
If I could I'll just interrupt you for just a moment.
Sure.
Because, although I'm interested in hearing about the lighting plan, I'm also aware that we've essentially ended the public, you're the last public comment.
Sorry.
So I just, we're getting into new information that we haven't heard yet.
Okay, so we'll stay off it.
And I appreciate
All right.
what you've done with that, but I just don't want to.
The bottom line is, the key to that is that the areas will be secured properly and the lights will go off at the end of business, 9 o'clock, they shut off. So I've made the poles lower, the lighting lower, and I've got it secured where I can shut them off. That's the important piece. So I'm sorry.
And then you have to say something you wanted to read.
Well, yeah, I guess I would say that the changes in this plan, I listened to what everyone had to say, the town, the public, and I believe this plan shows my effort in trying to meet requirements and desires. The fact is, this is going to be a long process with an approval. I still have to go to the master plan level. And I will, regardless of, statements against me, I can appreciate that, and frankly, I don't hold that against anybody. It's anyone's prerogative to do so. But I will say here publicly that I will, with an approval, obviously continue to work with anybody, any town official, any neighbor, whether for me or against me. I'll be willing to continue to take a look at improvements to this plan. I think this plan's great, but they always get better, right? So I'm willing to work with anybody during this process. I look forward, I'm on my 19th year here, and I look forward to many more. My dealership has grown, and I believe it's grown steady and firmly, and it's my hope that the or so employees at this time that are looking forward to your vote tonight can continue their business and doing business in this town. I guess there's really not much else more for me to say than to ask you for a vote yes unanimously on my proposal. I look forward to many years of business in North Smithfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. So at this time, on the matter of the proposed amendment to the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan maps as previously described, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Councilor Yazbek, is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Zawinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote.
South?
Close the public hearing.
Yes. Yazbek?
Yes.
Walensky?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes, motion carries. At this time, we have item B, discussion by council vote or other action on second reading, and I would entertain any motions from the council at this time regarding the proposed amendment to the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan maps as described.
So moved. Comprehensive plan amendment.
Oh,
Present.
motion by Council Yazbek to approve the, could you state your motion?
This is the second reading of the comprehensive plan amendment, correct? Move for passage.
Motion by Councilor Yazbek for passage of the proposed amendment to the North Smithfield Comprehensive Plan maps as previously described. Actually, I'll read it. Maps D1 and D2 to allow portions of Plat 17, lots 199, 142, 84, and 14 to be changed from residential suburban to highway business with appropriate transitional restrictions. That's Mr. Yazbek's motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor McGee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
South? No. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Walensky?
No.
Larry?
No. On to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item number 6, amendment to North Smithfield zoning ordinance map, petition to rezone portion of property described as Assessor's Plat 17, Lot 14, located off Eddie Dowling Highway from residential suburban to highway business, Benoit Realty LLC, Anchor Subaru, is listed on the agenda as continuation of public hearing and discussion by council vote or other action on second reading. And for this, I would turn to our solicitor for some procedural guidance because we have these two items, and it seems as if the only difference in these items is the lot numbers. The first one refers to Plat 17, Lot 14. The next one refers to Plat 17, Lots 199, 142, and 84. It does list the owners being a little bit different. Would you recommend that we treat these separately? Yes.
I think that because you have it listed on the agenda, we need it packaged.
So at this time, we have the continuation of the public hearings on the matter of the petition to rezone portion of property described as Assessor's Plat 17, Lot 14. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this that has something to say that hasn't already been said? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion at this time to close the public hearing. Moved by Councilor Yazbek, is there a second? Second by Councilor Alves. Is there any further discussion?
Can I make a point?
Yes.
You will be voting to approve the zoning change on the condition of approval of the final plan by the planning board.
So Mr. Erickson's clarification is we'll be voting on the petition to rezone the land contingent upon the planning board's acceptance and approval of the master plan. Final plan, pardon me, final plan. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote. This is to close the public hearing.
South? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazbek?
Yes.
Mr. Walensky?
Yes.
Larry.
Yes. At this time, is there discussion by council vote or other action on second reading of the petition to rezone portion of the property described as Assessor's Plat 17, Lot 14?
President, I move that the petition to rezone the portion of the property described as Assessor's Plat 17, Lot 14, located off the Garland Highway, from residential suburban RS to highway business BH, from Benoit Realty LLC, in parentheses, Anchor Subaru. Second reading.
And passage,
On second reading.
the second reading only.
Exactly what we're doing here tonight.
Well,
I'm not clear. Can we make it clear? You want to clear it up? What are we doing?
Well, the second reading-
Just close the public hearing. Mr. Yankovic, are you making a motion to approve this? Correct. Thank you.
Motion
So
is,
there's only a contingent or under condition that the planning board approves the final plan.
So that means.
did everybody get that? It's contingent upon the approval of the final plan by the planning board. So the motion is to both consider this the second reading and to vote for passage. Is everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay, so it's on the agenda as discussion by council vote or other action on second reading. We could just vote to consider this the second reading, or it could be voted to consider this the second reading and passage of the petition to rezone the property. And Mr.
Second reading, second reading.
Okay, second reading means passage.
Second reading means passage?
That's my
And that's the motion.
Okay. So it's second reading and passage. Clarify.
one, which my opinion is one and the same.
Okay. The solicitor indicates that that's one and the same.
I was question, Mr. President. May I suggest that the administrative, with the solicitor's input, why don't you just take it as the second, why don't you just take it as the second reading, Bill, Jim?
I would just.
And then break it out as a.
I mean, I think the amendment, I think there's motion required, motion to approve amendment to Smithfield and whatever else.
Okay.
So we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor McGee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Styles? No. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazdi?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
No.
Larry.
No. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 7, amendment to North Smithfield zoning ordinance map, petition to rezone portions of property described as Assessor's Plat 17, lots 199, 142, and 84, located off Eddie Downland Highway from residential suburban to highway business. RB North Smithfield Realty, Anchor Automotive Realty LLC, and Benoit Residential Realty LLC, listed as for continuation of public hearing and discussion by council vote or other actions on second reading. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this that has anything to say that hasn't been said? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Councilor Alves, is there a second? Second by Councilor Yazdi. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Styles? Yes. McGee?
Yes.
Yazdi?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
Yes.
Mr. Larry.
Yes, motion carries. Discussion by council vote or other action on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that the amendment to North Smithfield zoning ordinance map petition to rezone portions of property described as Assessor's Plat 17, lots 199, 142, and 84, located off Eddie Dowling Highway from residential suburban RS to highway business BH, RB North Smithfield Realty, Anchor Automotive Realty LLC, and Benoit Residential Realty. Second reading and move for passage.
Motion by Mr. Yazdi, is there a second? Second by Councilor McGee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Styles? No. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Yazdi?
Yes.
Mr. Zelinski?
No.
Mr. Larry.
No. Moved by Councilor Al, second by Councilor Zelinski. Is there any further discussion? say aye. Aye. 5 minute recess.